ये रेडियो पाकिस्तान पॉडकास्ट है।
Assalamu alaikum. This is News and Current Affairs channel of Radio Pakistan. I am your host Jadwat Siddiq with weekly program Diplomatic Session. Listeners and viewers, in this program we discuss bilateral relations, cooperation and other important developments of mutual interest with the diplomats of Pakistan's friendly countries and regional and international blocs. Today in our show we have with us His Excellency Ridwaan Jafar, Australian Envoy at OIC. This show is being broadcast simultaneously from News and Current Affairs channel of FM 101 networks of Radio Pakistan, Saturdays at 6:15 p.m. We welcome you here in this show, Excellency.
Jazakallah khair, shukriya.
Thank you so much. How do you look at OIC? You have been Australia's envoy in Saudi Arabia and various other countries, and you have a deep knowledge of the Islamic countries and the way they work and the way they are maintaining their relations with the rest of the world. So how do you look at OIC from Australian angle?
Well, thank you, Javed, and assalamu alaikum to you and to all your listeners around Pakistan. I've been very honoured to have had this role as Australia's Special Envoy to the OIC since December of 2018. I was appointed to the role when I was Ambassador to Saudi Arabia, and I was also accredited as Ambassador to Bahrain, Oman and Yemen. And for me, it's not just a professional experience, but a personal experience as a Muslim Australian, as someone who immigrated to Australia during the apartheid days from South Africa in 1981. My personal faith, of course, is very important to me, and if I can play a role in helping to build bridges of understanding between Australia and the Muslim world, then that is something that I'm very determined to do to further the relations between our people. I see it as an important role because I think Australia sits in a very important region. We sit right next door to the world's largest Muslim country, yes, Indonesia, and we're not that far from Pakistan. And we have a very significant Muslim community, including almost 100,000 Pakistani Australians, who make up a significant proportion of our Muslim population in Australia, which is now well over 600,000. So our relationship, both trade, economic, political and strategic, with the Muslim world, whether it's in the Indo-Pacific or whether it's in the Middle East and Africa, these relations are important to our country. And by helping to build these bridges of understanding between Australia and the Muslim world, we also further those economic, political, strategic, and also people-to-people links. And for me, that's one of the most important things. How do we educate our younger people about other cultures and other faiths? And so I'm hoping that by being here in Pakistan this week and also attending the OIC Foreign Ministers meeting, that I can play a positive role in helping to build Australia's relations.
Excellency, after 9/11, there has been a widening gap of understanding between the Islamic world and the Western world and the Western culture. So how to bridge that gap? And there has been a rise of Islamophobia in the Western world particularly. So how do you look at it?
Well, I think the problem of Islamophobia is of course an important problem, and it's something that we all need to address. Any form of religious discrimination or racism or bigotry should be tackled, and it should be something that we have at the forefront of our concerns. I played a role in relation to combating Islamophobia after the Christchurch terror attacks in 2019. I went to Istanbul to attend the OIC Emergency Foreign Ministers meeting, which was convened by the Turkish government to address what happened in Christchurch, but also the larger issue of Islamophobia. And I spoke there on behalf of Australia and about our commitment to freedom of religion and to protecting the rights of Muslims, not only in Australia but around the world. So it's something that we take very seriously. And it is something that our government is determined to make sure is at the forefront of our foreign policy concerns. So I think you're right. After 9/11, there was a lot of unfortunate stereotypes that were perpetuated throughout the world about the Muslim community. And the way we need to combat that, I think, is to educate people about what is true Islam and what is the common humanity that we all share.
Do you think that Islam is misunderstood in the Western world and elsewhere, and there's a need to clarify some misperceptions about Islam?
Absolutely. I don't think there's any doubt that Islam has been misunderstood, and in some ways the image of Islam was hijacked by a very tiny minority of people who do not represent the true face of Islam. And I think those...
that minority has been disowned by the large
Yes.
number of Islamic countries.
Well, absolutely, because the extremists kill more Muslims than anybody else. And I think you've seen that yourself here in Pakistan, unfortunately. And so it's in all of our interests to combat extremism and to really build relations between people of different faith groups and to make sure that Islam's own history and civilization is respected as it should be.
The United Nations has passed a resolution against Islamophobia recently. Do you think that this resolution could help bring down the Islamophobic feelings or sentiments against Islamic countries and Muslims?
Well, I think it's important for the United Nations to speak out against discrimination, not only against Islam, but against all faiths. And I think that we need to do more to work with international organizations and also in the Human Rights Council to make sure that we take a common, united stand against bigotry. Because this kind of discrimination and this kind of systemic stereotyping of faith groups not only marginalizes people, but it also, I think, hurts relations between people around the world, and we need to do whatever we can together. And I think this week, I hope we'll see people of different countries and different cultures standing together against all kinds of religious discrimination.
You mentioned that Australia has a huge Muslim community there. So how do you look at that community, and are they playing a constructive, positive role in the socio-economic development of Australia?
Absolutely. As a Muslim Australian myself and working in government, I look around and I see increasing numbers of Muslim Australians taking their place in service of our country. We have Muslim members of parliament, we have Muslims, of course, in business, in academia, in the military, and including in our cricket team. As you know,
one of them is playing.
With Usman Khawaja here.
Yes.
So I think you're seeing a greater understanding of the diversity of our Muslim community. The Muslim community in Australia is very diverse. It's made up of people not only from South Asia, but Southeast Asia, the Middle East, and Africa and Europe. So I think increasingly the Muslim community in Australia is being recognized for the role that it's playing, as you say, a very constructive role in building our society.
And there are Pakistanis as well. As you said, that 100,000 Pakistanis are there. So how do you look at their role? Are they assimilated in that society, or they are not?
Absolutely integral part of our Australian society. I know the Pakistani community in Australia very well. Some of my best friends in the Australian Muslim community are originally Pakistani. And they are playing a very significant role in building our society. The Pakistani community in Australia is particularly well educated. It's a particularly young community and a very professional community. And I think they are regarded throughout our society as playing a very important and, as you say, constructive role in building our multicultural society. You know, in Australia, 28% of Australians were born overseas. And 50% of Australians have at least one parent born overseas. So we're a very, very diverse society, and that's been the case for centuries, because in fact the first people who traded with our indigenous Aboriginal community were Muslim fishermen from what is now Indonesia, from Makassar, and they were trading with the indigenous community in the 1600s. So that legacy of trade and of commerce between the Muslim communities from around the world and Australia and the people of the Australian continent has been happening for centuries, and it predates European settlement.
A lot of young Pakistani students, they are very keen to study in Australia. What is the reason the Australian universities are offering them some better courses, or they're giving them some facilities? What is the reason?
I think it's a combination of all of that. I think our education system is widely recognized around the world as first class, but also offering good value for money. And also it's a society that's a very friendly, welcoming society. And I think Pakistanis who come to study in Australia, and I think before COVID, there are up to 13,000 Pakistanis studying in Australia every year. And we want all of them to come back now because we know that they love being in Australia and we love having them there. And the variety of degrees that we offer, it's at the cutting edge of education,
Yes.
whether it's in IT or engineering or the sciences or medicine or arts and humanities. We have so many different universities offering first-class degrees.
So this OIC conference that you are going to participate, what is your message for this OIC conference?
My message would be that we're all in this together, and that Australia may be a majority non-Muslim society, but at the same time we are invested in all of our communities and all of our different faith groups. So we're here to send a message that Australia would like to play a constructive role in building relations with the Muslim world.
About Pakistan and Australia relations, do you want to evaluate our relationship, bilateral relationship?
Sure. Well, there's a rich history there. I think we've had a diplomatic mission in Pakistan since 1948. Of course, there's a Commonwealth factor and legacy. There's also the rich tradition of migrants that we've spoken about, of Pakistanis who migrated to Australia, including Usman Khawaja's family being one of them. But then there's also the shared history that we've had, through decades in terms of building relations and working together to combat things like apartheid, when Pakistan and Australia joined forces on that. And I think now increasingly so, there's much more to do on trade, and I think our trading relationship is worth almost $2 billion a year, and I think that has so much potential to grow, as I think you have a very young society and a very well-educated community starting to emerge, and I think I'd like to see that our bilateral relationship move from strength to strength.
On the trade and economy front, you think that the current level of economic cooperation between Australia and Pakistan could be enhanced, increased?
Absolutely. I think I think it definitely can, and I think there's new and emerging technologies that we can start to explore, and there's new areas and avenues for trade that we can start to harness. Our education and services, for example, are a big part now of our exports to Pakistan, but I think we also have a lot to learn from your people. The IT savviness of Pakistanis is well understood in Australia, and wherever you go in different cities around Australia, you'll meet young Pakistani Australians or Pakistanis studying in Australia who are at the cutting edge of IT in particular and engineering. So I think the potential for our relationship, our trading and economic relationship, there's a lot of potential for it to grow.
Pakistan is very keen to have foreign investment here in various sectors. So what are the prospects of Australian entrepreneurs, investors to come and invest in Pakistan?
Well, I think we're going to have to open their eyes to all the opportunities that you have in Pakistan. Obviously, in the last few years with COVID, I think it's restricted in some ways the entrepreneurial spirit of people around the world. Now it's time, I think, as travel starts to open up again, that we'll hope that we can get Australian business people to start to come here and start to see the opportunities that you have in your amazing country.
On this educational front, as we have mentioned, that a lot of Pakistani students are there in Australia for studies, higher studies. So is Australia looking for or visualizing giving some kind of scholarships or incentives for more Pakistani young people to go and study there?
Well, I would think that scholarships should play an important part in attracting more Pakistanis and people from all over the world to come to Australia. We have an Australia Rewards Scheme, for example, that already offers scholarships to Pakistanis, and I would hope that we can take advantage of more of that in coming years. And one of the things when I get back to Canberra is to talk to my colleagues who work on the Pakistan desk in our foreign ministry, to talk to them about the things that I've seen here, my insights and my perspectives, and I've been very impressed from what I've already seen just in being here a day.
Yes. What are the prospects of collaboration between Pakistani higher education institution and the Australians?
Again, I think, Jadwat, there's a lot of opportunity. Our universities are great institutions and research institutions, and I'm sure that we can start to pair universities both in Australia and here in Pakistan on key areas, including in new areas such as the green economy and tackling climate change and issues like that. So new and emerging technologies. The green economy is, I think, an area where we can potentially explore more things that we can do, because you also have similar challenges, in terms of arid land,
yes.
and also how you build opportunities in terms for your agrarian society as well. So I think there's a lot of synergy, and I think there's a lot of opportunity.
So Australia can share its experiences in this field, agriculture, environment, and other related areas.
Absolutely. I think we have a very dry continent, but we've been able to harness new technologies to take advantage of these new technologies to assist our farmers. And I would hope that that could potentially assist people in Pakistan in the rural area, but also in mining and engineering. There's more that Australia can do, I think, to potentially share some of that expertise.
Yes, and Pakistan too is a federal, society. It is a federalism here in Pakistan, the system, and the water distribution is a problem here, and the provinces, the federating units, keep complaining about the water shortages and one big province taking away their share and these kind of things. How Australia manages all this?
Well, that's a complicated story. Because we're such a dry continent, we've had to channel new technologies, and in our federal system as well, there's always issues in terms of how the rivers flow between the different states, and the Commonwealth government has to play a part in working with the state governments in terms of water and water management, and also in terms of harnessing hydro energy and electricity. So again, there's so much more that we can do to share some of these experiences that we've gone through, good and bad, so that you can learn from our experiences and potentially harness new technologies to assist your own people to prosper.
How could Pakistan and Australia learn from each other to enhance and accelerate the economic growth, particularly how can Pakistan learn it?
I think we can learn by actually visiting each other. And I think now, as I mentioned earlier, that we're starting to open travel again, that we want to see more Pakistanis coming and visiting Australia, including your experts in your different areas of government and the private sector, and come and see what we're doing. And I'd like to see Australians on the other side coming here too, to make sure that we can do our bit to build a productive relationship where we can work together to tackle some of the common interests and common challenges that we face in the world today.
Right. So what's going to be your message for the people of Pakistan when you are here and participating in this OIC meeting? So what is, from your perspective, what is the message?
My overall message would be one of respect, that mutual respect, that it's important that we understand when it comes to matters of faith. Attending the OIC meeting is showing our respect as a multicultural society for freedom of faith and religion, and that Australia is determined to make sure that we remain a voice for religious freedom and opportunity, and that we stand with the Muslim world against discrimination, and that we need to work together and we need to do more. And I would like to do more in this role to also build my own relationship with my Pakistani interlocutors and counterparts. And I'm very excited that I'm meeting with counterparts from the Foreign Ministry of Pakistan this week, and also on the sidelines, inshallah, of the OIC meeting. So for me, it's an opportunity. It's my first ever visit to Pakistan as someone who has ancestry in my father's side of Punjabi ancestry as well. For me, it's also a coming home in some ways to visit a land where some of my ancestors have descended from. And so it's a message of peace and friendship as well, and family.
Oh, thanks so much. This show is being broadcast simultaneously from News and Current Affairs channel and FM 101 networks of radios, Radio Pakistan, Saturday at 6:15 p.m. Listeners and viewers, this is all with today's show. In the diplomatic session next week, we'll have with us a new personality. The producer of today's program was Rana Ghulam Mustafa and executive producer Abdur Rauf Khan. This show is also available on Radio Pakistan's official website www.radio.gov.pk, social media platforms, and Radio Pakistan's podcast at podcast.radio.gov.pk. I'm your host, Jadwat Siddiq, signing off from today's diplomatic session from News and Current Affairs channel of Radio Pakistan, Islamabad. Excellency, thank you very much for being with us in this show. It has been an honor to talk to you.
Well, shukriya and jazakallah khair to all of you.
Thank you so
much. Assalamu alaikum to all of your listeners.
Thank you very much. Kind.
ये रेडियो पाकिस्तान पॉडकास्ट है।